are stronger when built from both sides.
Let's connect.
Let's connect. In the middle.
Hello, and welcome to Building Bridges, a show on the Greensboro Television Network that highlights ways members of the public and members of the Greensboro Police Department can connect with each other. I'm your host, Sandra Hughes. On today's program, we will share information about the Child Response Initiative. CRI is a coordinated community response that addresses the needs of children exposed to violence and their families. There are many partners involved, from law enforcement to local nonprofits to businesses to families. And together, they are helping children exposed to violence lead healthier lives. Joining me today, Dr. Kelly Graves, who is co-founder of the Child Response Initiative, and Ms. Mandy Ward, the lead child advocate. So welcome to the show to both of you. Nice to have you here. I had not heard of this program before, but it sounds wonderful. Now, you started it, right?
Yes, myself and my colleague, Lindy Beauregard. So back in 2008, we noticed a need in the community to address the unidentified needs of kids who've been exposed to violence. And so a bunch of people came together, from businesses to nonprofits to law enforcement, and we basically got together in a room and started talking about what can we do to address the needs of kids exposed to violence. And we looked at a couple programs across the country. We looked at what our unique community needs are, and we designed the Greensboro Child Response Initiative as a program that can be a law enforcement community partnership model to address children's needs.
So how do you know when a child needs something? I mean, you know, kids come in, they're playing, they're laughing, they're doing things. How can you recognize a child that needs help?
In the beginning of our program, and still now, most of our referrals come from law enforcement officers, so that when children are present at the scene of a crime or witnesses at the scene of a crime, we'll receive referrals from patrol officers that the child was either a direct victim or a witness of something traumatic. And so we follow up with those families. And a lot of the time, you don't see immediate impact of those kids. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to see signs and symptoms. But one of the functions that we do is to help individuals across the community, parents and community members in general, identify what child trauma looks like. And so it can look different for different kids and at different ages. So younger children will show signs like tummy aches and difficulty sleeping and separation anxiety. Some older kids will show temper tantrums and not wanting to go to school, or not wanting mom to leave the house, or some other different kinds of separation issues as well. Your adolescent kids often will show some disruptive behavior. They can show depression and anxiety symptoms, but they can also show things like acting out behaviors, not wanting to go to school, what sometimes parents think as disrespectful kid. And very often children and adolescents will be reacting to something that they've experienced and show it in ways that we might not immediately look at as traumatic. But if we look at the context of what they've been through, often it's a response to something that they've been through.
I heard of a situation where a little boy came to school, and every time somebody would touch him or touch his hand, he'd jump. And so when they took his shirt off, they found that he had been strapped and beaten really badly on his back and his body. But they wouldn't see that with his hands and his face. So it's interesting that you have to pick these kids out. And Mandy, you're one of those people who has to do that, right?
Yes, ma'am. I'm one of the advocates, and we work primarily in the patrol divisions with our patrol officers with the Greensboro Police Department. And so every day looks a little bit different, but like Dr. Graves said, our patrol officers give us referrals for a variety of incidents that they respond to. It doesn't have to be a crime necessarily. It could just be an officer responded to a call and there's just a lot of disruption with a family, or a family's going through a lot of chaos and just needs some help.
I could imagine that parents, though, would fight against that. No, everything's fine here.
Yeah.
Is that right?
We get that, absolutely. A lot of the time that we spend talking to the parents, a lot of that initial time is breaking down those barriers and really working through and just helping them understand that we just want to help. We don't want anything from them. We're not with the police department. I'm not an officer. We do a lot of helping them understand that we really are just an advocate that's there to help them and their family in whatever way that they feel that they need.
Now, we're talking about a large number of people.
Yeah, we're talking about a very large number of people. To date, we've served over 9,000 individuals in
you
Greensboro
serious?
as
Oh
far
my
as
goodness.
children and families.
9,000?
9,000, yes.
That's a lot.
And we're higher than that at this point.
Yeah.
So,
And,
yeah.
and that's part of the reason why this program started, because to raise awareness about how common exposure to violence is among kids. And so some of the national estimates right now are that 1 in 4 girls are going to be sexually assaulted by the time they graduate high school,
Ooh.
1 in 6 boys. Just under 16 million children in our country are living in violent homes right now. And so when we look at the national statistics, some local data has also shown true to be consistent with those national patterns. So in our community and some of the studies that we've looked at, about 40% of kids are what are called polyvictims, which means many different types of violent exposure in the past year.
Is there one particular kind of violence that most of the kids go through?
The majority of the incidents that we get referrals for from our patrol officers are domestic violence. But the beauty of CRI is that we're not just domestic violence. It really covers the span of crime. So we get referrals for DWIs, where a parent is intoxicated and driving the child around, shoplifting, where a parent is using the children to shoplift, missing teenagers and repeat runaways, all the way to home invasions. You know, if you think about someone coming into your home and burglarizing the house, that can be really unsettling, all the way to the more severe stuff like domestic violence, child sexual assault, and those more severe things like homicides and aggravated assault.
And obviously children are afraid to tell it sometimes, aren't they?
Yeah,
I mean, how do you
absolutely.
get it out of them if you don't just find it yourself?
It's very true that children can be afraid, and how you respond when they do talk about what they've been through is so key. So one of the main functions that we do with CRI is to provide parental information and support about what child trauma looks like and how you can best help your child recover from what they've been through. And so providing those signs and symptoms and those tips for the parents, because ultimately we can help as advocates and as community providers, but the parents are who are with those children the most. So
That's
if we
right.
can help equip and support the parents, we can help support that whole family unit.
If a child goes through trauma, of whatever type, and they go all the way through school, nobody ever says anything or helps them, what does that do into them when they graduate from high school? How can they move forward?
Dr.
Let me
Green.
take that. Okay. So,
She's the psychologist.
so there's a lot of different ways that people react, and it's important to recognize that the large majority of people that do encounter a traumatic situation are very resilient, and they'll go on to do very wonderful, productive, successful members of our community. But in order to do that, one of the main things that you see, especially as folks get older, is some difficulty with kind of organizing their life, thinking about where do I fit? What's my role? And unfortunately, if trauma goes unaddressed, sometimes folks that, for example, have grown up in domestic violence homes will find themselves in relationships that are not healthy. So
So they keep living that pattern.
absolutely. And so CRI is about breaking that cycle and helping folks develop a healthy lifestyle that they can share with their families and their communities. And
So this program is for which schools? Guilford County schools or?
it's for the entire city of Greensboro.
Okay.
So we receive referrals. We have the Kellen Foundation houses the Child Response Initiative, and so we train advocates like Mandy and several others, and we base our advocates in the different districts across Greensboro to work side by side with patrol. So we're not GPD employees, we're not CPS, and those are two big things that we always share with families so that they know that we're a safe person.
Exactly.
Not that everyone else is not safe, but we are a neutral party. We're not part of law enforcement, and we're not part of CPS. So we're really truly there to be their advocate and their child's advocate for what they need to be safe and well.
Do you need more help?
We always need more help. There are so many people in need. I think the beauty of the way CRI is set up, though, and how the model works in Greensboro is that we can have a small number of advocates and then lean on all of those community partners that we've really built relationships with. And so we have what's called our Trauma Provider Network, which is actually a network of behavioral health agencies who deliver counseling and therapy specifically to families and children.
So you don't have someone that just comes up and say, I'd like to volunteer to work with your organization.
Well, we've had people want to volunteer, and we've absolutely had interns and volunteers help us in many ways. For the direct advocacy, we like to have more permanent folks in that position so that families can have an ongoing contact with the same person. But really the partnerships that we've built in the community have really allowed us to use the number of advocates that we have to help a lot of different families in a lot of different ways, so that we can talk to a family or visit with a family or meet with a teenager, find out what all their needs are, and really lean on the resources that already exist in Greensboro and just help those families and those teenagers and those kids get plugged in the way that we can.
I guess anyone just can't, you've got to have some knowledge
Yeah.
if you volunteer. Can't say, she hit you, come on, let's go hit her back.
Right. Some
Yeah.
definite training.
Yeah, we've
about
got to have some training
trauma.
on this, on how to handle this. Well, I thank you both very much for telling us about this. I did not know about it, and I'm glad I know now, so I can spread the word and help people that, like you never know who's having trouble if
Absolutely.
you're not aware or watching what they're doing. So thank you both very much for being here. Well, families in Greensboro are certainly fortunate to have this program and passionate people like you too, helping them heal from some very difficult situations. Following a short break, we'll return to our show and meet two GPD officers who have worked closely CRI. I think you'll find their perspectives very uplifting. Stay with us. Welcome back to Building Bridges, a monthly show that brings together police officers and the community members to make our city safer. I'm your host, Sandra Hughes. Now, before the break, we learned about CRI, the Child Response Initiative, a network of more than 30 agencies, all focused on one goal: help children and families overcome the effects of exposure to violence and trauma. Joining me now is with Dr. Graves, she's still here, and also two GPD officers who have worked closely with CRI. Lieutenant Jill Gladieux has been connected with CRI for several years, and she's currently assigned to the Criminal Investigations Division and leads the detectives who investigate crimes against people or persons. Also on stage with me now is Officer Aaron Griffith, who is a school resource officer at Page High School. As an SRO, OG, as he's called by the students. Well, now they got to OG. He really gets to know that the young people he sees every day. I would imagine that in both of your jobs, that you see a lot of people affected by trauma and violence and all that kind of stuff. So how do you handle that perspective, or how do you notice that perspective? I'll ask you first.
Absolutely. We have a great working relationship with CRI, and we come in contact with children that are subjected to violence. CRI has been a great avenue for a referral, where we refer the children out to CRI where they can provide services. A lot of times if children are affected by violence, we don't know what the long-term results are, but there's a lot of times where they're affected by, say, a traffic crash or even homelessness or something that they see that they're not a victim or a witness, but it could present a problem in the future. The officers will document that in a case report and then refer that over to the CRI. So the working relationship for CRI and Greensboro Police Department and the community is just, it's immeasurable.
Sometimes when you run into one person, do you run into that person again and again, or maybe is it just one time?
That's definitely a possibility in cases. A lot of times we have calls for service on domestic violence and we return back to the same houses. And it may be a situation where we don't make an arrest because there's not enough elements of the crime to make an arrest, but we're there to kind of keep the peace. But the children are witnessing this in the house and they're seeing the police come in there. It might be a hostile situation initially when the officers show up. So we're there to kind of keep the peace. But in a situation where we do have to make an arrest, that subjects the child to a lot of trauma.
Yeah,
and it's a really tough situation where we have to change our hat. A lot of times we're the enforcer, but then we can't stop right then and become the counselor. So here CRI comes in and they're in our pocket. It's a great tool.
And you see, I've always heard that even if a parent is abusing a child, that child still wants to be with mommy, no matter what's happening. Is that what you're finding?
Absolutely. So kids who have been impacted by or traumatized by their own family members, it can be very confusing for them because these are the people that were supposed to keep them safe. These are the people that say, this is what love is. And so there's this complicated dance between, I know this doesn't feel right, but this is my loved one and this is who I go to for help and support. So there's this confusion that sometimes can happen for kids about who do I go to when I need help.
And Officer Griffith, where'd the old OG come from?
Stands for Officer Griffith.
And that's what you let the
Yes.
young people call you?
Yes,
From
ma'am.
your perspective, what are you seeing? Because you're in a high school, right?
In the high school that I'm in, a lot of the kids come to me for help. They confide in me on a lot of different things. For instance, abuse, homelessness, lack of food. And that's when they'll actually come to me and I'll actually call out to CRI.
And they can come up with some kind of program
Oh
to help
yes,
them?
they have a number of different resources that they use that I don't have access to.
What about bullying? Do you handle that?
I do sometimes. The school mainly handles that, but actually I also help the school with that and talk to the people who are involved as well as the victims and try to help them handle that.
Yeah, because I guess that's pretty tough to deal with for even a high school student.
Yes, ma'am.
Even we were talking a little bit about younger children, and they go through some of that too. Is that right?
The lot of the bullying, we don't see that in the Criminal Investigations Division currently, but we deal with a lot of cases on a long term, whether it's dealing with a homicide victim or an assault. So we haven't come in contact with the family members on a more consistent basis. So as far as the bullying, where we are right now, we don't deal with the bullying. I know he deals with a lot more in the school system.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
And I can imagine
And
as
it's an issue.
Yeah, as the kids get older, you probably see more of it maybe. Is that right?
Yeah, and also it becomes more complex with social media involved. It becomes more engraved into the system and the different avenues of use, where they can actually get it out and have a number of people see it or and witness the bullying and all that stuff, and it actually becomes more traumatic for the child.
Well, social media is really making a stand, isn't it?
Absolutely, and you know, just to kind of piggyback off what you all were saying, is one of the functions of CRI is to be a safety net for these families. So to kind of weave in the bullying piece, we worked with a family who had a 7-year-old who was a witness of domestic violence. So we talked with the family, we talked with the 7-year-old, and everyone would make the immediate assumption that this child is struggling with exposure to domestic violence. But when we talked to this 7-year-old boy, yes, that was a concern for him. But when we asked him, how are you doing? What made his lip quiver and his tears drop was the bully at school that was messing with him every single day. And so CRI also provides an opportunity to look at the safety and wellness of the whole family. So we can get in there with a potential incident of exposure to domestic violence, but often we find that the family has much more complicated needs than just that entry element. And so we can provide an approach for that whole family and what their needs are comprehensively.
You know, you've got to have a lot of control to handle this, because I'd be ready to to fight somebody.
It's patience.
Is it,
It is a lot of
It's a lot of
patience. And,
patience.
yeah. And like what I was talking about, the different hats is we have a job to do, but we're also, you know, as far as building bridges and keeping with the community, we want to have good relationship, but there's time where we have to put that enforcement hat on, and we know that child is watching, but to reduce the safety in that house and protect everybody involved, we have to do what we have to do, and then we worry about where this child or the rest of the family can get some resources, and that's where CRI comes in and is a huge benefit to the community.
Do you feel that enough people know about CRI?
If you're asking me, I think no. I think it's grown tremendously over the years, but I think it still has some room to grow. One of the first tenets that we have is to never promise something that we can't deliver. And so as we're growing carefully. We want to make sure that the word gets out, but we also want to make sure that when folks call us, we have the staff and the support to respond. And so we've been growing carefully so that we can make sure and keep with our value of providing a high quality, quick service to the families and making sure that we can respond immediately.
So, Officer Griffith, do people in your school know about CRI?
They don't, I don't think as a whole, but there are certain students and certain families that do know about it because of the help that they receive.
I see. So is that something that needs to be spread out in the school or somehow let people know that it's there?
I would say yes. I have flyers in my office as well as business cards, and I try to talk to them as much as possible about the different options and outreach programs that there are.
When I graduated from college, I always wanted to teach high school students because it seems you could reason with them, you know. If you don't do this, you're going to fail. You won't go to college.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the same way it is now or not.
No, ma'am.
That's good. Okay, good.
I'd like to add, Sandra, is that when our patrol officers do go on calls and they ask about some services, our officers are now educated to talk about CRI and say, we'll recommend you, put you in the report for a CRI referral, and these are the services and some of the trauma responses that they can get with that. So even when CRI first came to the department and partnered up with us, it was kind of an adjustment for the officers because it was a very soft side. Unusual that we'd be dealing with that, but we got educated and they came to lineups and they kind of informed us on what their approach was aside from the investigation. They don't get involved in any of the investigative cases, but they're another resource for the, providing counseling or other services for the children and the family affected. So it has been an adjustment for the police department, but it has been a very beneficial thing for our officers.
So is it welcomed by families?
Yes. Yes, very
the
much
most
so.
I
part.
believe so.
Sometimes, because it's a voluntary program, some families will not accept, will not be interested in services, and that's their choice, and we provide the space, for that to be their choice. But the majority of families are at least receiving of the information, and many work very closely with us.
But how can you walk away if someone says, I don't want to have anything to do with CR? How can you walk away when you know something wrong is going on?
You just keep trying and trying and try to get to that child and get them to trust you, and so they will open up, or that family.
That's not easy.
No, it's not. It's very trying on your.
I can imagine. Well, I want to thank you all for joining me and telling me about the programs that you work with. I hope a lot of people find out about it because it sounds like something everybody needs to know. Well, thank you for helping us again with this program and how it works. Many people in our area don't know about it. And in a minute, after a short break, we'll meet two people who will share their personal stories with us. Their journeys to wellness are testaments to their strength and to the possibility of what can be with a little help and a whole lot of determination. Welcome back to Building Bridges. I'm Sandra Hughes. We're continuing our conversation about CRI, the Child Response Initiative. I'd like to welcome our two new guests, who is Ms. Lisa Taylor and Ms. Shanti Singh, and also Dr. Graves is still here with us. Lisa is a CRI advocate, and she is able to help Ms. Singh and her children after they were exposed to violence. Now, I understand this is a very personal experience for both of you ladies, and I appreciate you sharing it with us. You're very brave to do that because a lot of people say, oh, no, no, no. So, Ms. Singh, let's start with you, if you don't mind. If you would tell us what led to you getting in touch with CRI.
Well, after what happened to us, my family was traumatized. I have 3 little girls, and Lieutenant Thompson came to our rescue. He put us in touch with Miss Lisa and the CRI team, and they just got to work.
So did you call the police first, or?
Well, we contacted the police, and they came. We weren't able to stay where we were. We were just in danger, so we had to leave. So we pretty much had to find, just walk out of your door, leave everything behind, and just go. We didn't have an option. So
I can't imagine doing that. I mean, where did you go to sleep and eat?
Well, we stayed with family for a little bit, but that gets old because staying with family is not easy.
Oh, I know.
So it's difficult, but we were able to find different means. We stayed at hotels for a little bit. Eventually, Lieutenant Thompson got together a team, helped us get our stuff out. Miss Lisa helped us try to find a home to move to. So that got us situated and started so that the kids could just have a little bit of normal living, not be complicated and having to just start over, but in a good way.
So how did she find you, Miss Lisa?
Through Lieutenant Thompson, by us working right there in the police department and being able to connect directly with command staff. He contacted me and said, this is a very serious situation. We're going to need CRI. We need to get in there and do what we can. And he said, the mother is very amenable to the help. If you give her a call, I've already told her about you. She's expecting your call. And when I called her up, she was so elated. She said, you're really going to help. And it was so good because sometimes people, when they're in very traumatizing situations like that, they don't think maybe that someone's going to come through for them. And hearing the person on the other line and being able to identify with someone who's literally going to start seeking help for them, we provided whatever resources that we could. And I told her we're going to be on it. And we did a Lindy 911 call where we were able to just like reach out to other resources within the community, where we as within the Kellen Foundation, we have a lot of community partners that we say, we have a family that's in need. How can you help? We have a little girl. School's getting ready to start. That was another thing that Ms. Singh was so afraid of. School's starting and I don't want them to be disrupted. There was so many different compartments to this, and people just got together. Before you know it, we had book bags, we had school supplies, we had clothes, we had food, we had everything was just coming in, and we're like,
sounds great.
Oh, it was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. The community came to the rescue. And then I said, do you mind? You know, we're going to do what we can to find you a place to stay. And through the help of her church and some other people that she was also connected to, because the key here is when they're in situations like that, any of the victims, who is your support? And wherever that is, let's lean heavily on that. And if they need to talk to us, then they can too, because we're going to work together as a team to make sure it happens.
So you obviously, when you made that call, that was one of the best things you could have done, right?
Well, when I called Miss Lisa, she just, right off the bat, every question that I had, she answered. And she answered me, she got back to me, she went back and forth with me. Sometimes when you're traumatized and you're not sure what to do, you need someone to stand behind you, and she really came through for me and my family. And my husband is just elated. When they came over to my house to see the kids, we feel more like they're family than they're just, oh yeah, that's the Greensboro Police Department. And a lot of, we've made a lot of good relationships, a lot of friendships, but more like family, I would say.
Well, how did your children handle this?
Well, at first it was difficult. They had nightmares, they were doing terrible in school, just bad grades. Now they're just, I don't think they remember. They've just, they've got soccer, they've got cheerleading, they go to Pleasant Garden Baptist Church, they're in Bible study, I don't even think.
So you got a handful now, don't you?
They're just excited about living, and we're happy. And that's one of the main things in life, is to be happy.
Are you willing to give us a clue of what happened?
Well, our home was shot into.
Oh.
And it just basically just broke us, when you have to go to counseling and you have 3 little ones, and you think about, what if I lost them?
Oh.
You just, you have to pick up the pieces and just move on, and we've done that, and I'm proud of where we are now.
And Dr. Graves, this is not new, right? I mean,
Unfortunately not. Violence happens in our community and in communities across the country, and I think, a testimony to her strength is not only did she work with an advocate and trust that relationship to reach out for help, but she also stood firm to get help for herself and her children. And so really what she said about, we're happy and we're well is largely a testimony to the efforts that she made to get her family the help that she needed, the help that the family needed. And, as we mentioned at the earlier part of the segment, families and kids are resilient, and sometimes they just need that little support to help them get back on track. And so CRI is glad to help with that.
so are you spreading the word?
Oh, yes, definitely. I mean, Miss Lisa always, happens to call me now and again. She checks up on us. I'm getting more involved in church, trying to do things. I'm trying to be a better person. I used to be just, like couch potato, didn't want to do anything. But, I'm trying to get involved, trying to, maybe do missions, try to help out someone else, because there's always going to be someone else.
Well, it sounds like your children are very involved.
Oh, yeah. I have amazing kids. They're 10, 7, and 2. And they just, they just light up my life. And I'm
Well,
grateful.
I mean, to have someone shoot into your house, that's
It's not something you expect.
No,
I mean,
and that's
not,
very scary.
Not like for someone who, we just regular people. We just work, and we didn't ask for it. But I'm glad that we're able to like just pick up the pieces, and it's basically forgotten, even though it happened last year. It is, we've moved on, and we've accepted it.
And you don't let her just go when it's all done.
We do our best to stay connected if we can, because we realize that even if you try to forget it for a little while, it might still creep back up. One of the key things we do is try to provide information about what trauma looks like. And I remember when Ms. Singh said, how am I going to know? I mean, I know it was scary for them, but how am I going to know? We start providing different symptoms, things that they might be doing, that the children might be showing, not sleeping well at night, not wanting to eat, being afraid, being too attached, different things like that that were going on. And she was like, I really think they are. And being able to say, it's okay that if you get your children help. We provide agencies that can help the children, and we will give that information to you. And she was very, very open for that, very open for that for herself as well.
Is this a long process? I mean, how long did it take you to get her kind of settled?
When we say Lindy's 911, we mean just that.
Absolutely.
We move within 24, 48 hours. We had things busting down our door. I'm sure you're familiar with Jenny Cavanagh. She came to the rescue as well. I made one phone call to her, and before I could even blink, she was already at the office bringing book bags, and then other people providing supplies. And we even had other SRO officers doing the same thing. Phenomenal response.
Then you have to be extremely proud of CRI.
I am very proud of CRI, but I think even more I'm very proud of our team and our advocates and our community. And when we say it takes a village, it is absolutely the case that the power behind CRI is not any one person, and it's not the advocates per se. It's the synergy of what can happen when people come together to do the right thing.
So do you want to tell our viewers how to get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So if you're interested in learning more about CRI, you can call us at 336-373-4827. Anybody can make a referral. Initially it was just law enforcement, but now that we've grown, if you are a parent, a community member, a church member, and you know of a family that might be in need of assistance, you can call us at that number and we'll follow up with the family.
Not too little, not too big. It doesn't matter.
0 to 18 years old, any child from birth to 18, we're happy to assist.
I mean, the situation can't be too little
Absolutely.
or too big.
Absolutely, because sometimes you see snippets and you just get that feeling that something's not quite right. And so we're there to help kind of sort out what services we can potentially help connect that family to.
Good. Well, I'll bet you're very happy with CRI.
Yeah, they've taken good care of us, and I guess I wouldn't be sitting here today if it weren't for the assistance that they provided to us.
Oh,
so we are grateful.
That
Very
is
grateful.
wonderful.
So I'm so proud of her.
Are you?
I am.
Why?
I'm proud of her.
Tell us why.
Because it has empowered her to do more. Because she now says, what can I do to help somebody
help
else?
others.
And when that's the whole point, is that we empower other people. So I'm just proud of her that she's able to. Sometimes we have our memories, but our strength can be greater than our memories. And
Yes,
she
they
has
can.
used that. She's used that. It has helped her. It has helped her family. And we are watching her family grow.
You all are making me smile. I mean, even though it was a bad situation, to hear how well you've handled it and worked it out, it's just wonderful. You have to be very proud of
We
the
are,
program.
and one of the things that we really believe is that kids deserve safe. They deserve safe and well environments, and so whatever we can do to help facilitate that. Our kids are, not to be cliche, but our kids are our future. And so how do we help create the context for them to really explore who they are and who they were meant to be, and provide an environment for them to grow into that person.
I watch a lot of television, believe it or not. And I see these shows where a child had a horrible growing up time and they grow up to be horrible people because they copy what they
Right.
lived with. And that's one thing you're trying to stop.
That's
Absolutely.
exactly right.
Good.
That's exactly
Well, I'm
right.
glad your 3 girls are doing great.
I am too. I mean, it just makes you a better person, and it gives you an opportunity to do things with your life. So, good comes from bad, and sometimes, it's just a great thing.
Well, that's
And we're
great.
happy.
Well, I'm very proud of what has happened for you. Proud of you for jumping on it so
Oh,
fast.
thank you
and
so much.
proud of you for starting the whole program. That
Thank
this
you.
just makes me smile. Well, I'll have to say that this was an incredibly impactful show. I can think of nothing more meaningful than to change the course of a child's life so he or she has the opportunity to reach his full potential. what each of you is doing is helping our young people and their families is very powerful, and I thank you all for doing that. The Child Response Initiative represents the best of police and community partnerships. This network of providers, along with GPD officers, are building some amazing bridges. That's what we're trying to do here now, is build bridges between the citizens and the police department by connecting people to resources, by getting them help and giving them support. This team is building bridges to brighter futures. Until next time, I'm Sandra Hughes, so be safe.
This show was funded in part by the Greensboro Police Foundation, an independent nonprofit organization whose mission is to enhance Greensboro's economic strength by promoting the safest city possible for its residents, workers, and visitors through support of the Greensboro Police Department. For more information about the Greensboro Police Foundation, visit www.greensboropolicefoundation.org.